Okay, well, good morning. My name is Elisa Stovall. I am with the Indiana IEP Resource Center. I'm one of the consultants there. And we're going to spend a little time this morning talking about some behavioral strategies. And we're not going to do that from the perspective of someone who's got a lot of background in behavior and maybe is working as a behavioral specialist or working with students in one of the programs that support students with behavioral needs. This is just a session of general ideas and strategies that any classroom can use. So if you're not the behavior specialist, you are definitely in the right place this morning. And I want to say thank you to my colleague, Angie McKinney, who's here supporting me today, and she'll be working with me as we move through this process. So let's see where we're going. And let's try that again. First thing, materials. If you're familiar with Padlet, we have been using those for a couple of years now. The materials from this session are found there, and you can either use your browser and put in the address here. You can click on it if you've got a live version of it, or if you want to scan with your device to get materials. All you do is click, and I'm going to do that, and it's going to take us there, hopefully bring us back. And you can see here's where the Padlet is. Angie, are you okay to see that on the screen where you are?
No, it's a grayed out box, so you'll probably have to share it, unshare and reshare if you wanted to do that. If not, I think everybody can find their way to the Padlet.
Okay. Well, let me stop that, take that off the screen and just start again. So that way maybe you can see these things. First one out of the gate, and I can't even get it to share. Okay, let's see here. Share screen. There.
That's it.
This is what it looks like. Okay, and that you can just, by clicking on this, you see where there's a hand kind of mousing over it, click on it, it opens it. You can download, you can just open it larger on your screen and take a look. So you have options there. And while I'm here, I'm going to let you know that there are a couple of handouts I'm going to reference towards the end. There's nothing that you need immediately. And then there's also some additional resources that will be there for you after the session. And you can come back to this area anytime you need to or anytime you want to. And these materials will be there for you. So wanted to make you aware of that. And I'm going to continue to go back and forth because I don't want to lose anybody again. So again, you can use the click or the scan to do that. And now you have the materials available. I thought we would start with maybe a general definition, or at least a definition that I've kind of fallen into as I work with behavior. Of course, behavior is a noun. It feels like it's a verb most of the time. It just feels like it's something that we're always doing, but it's actually a noun. And what stands out to me in these definitions is behavior is really
Elisa,
a response. Yes.
Can you show your PowerPoint screen again? If you're referring to definitions, it's not showing.
Oh, thank you.
Just all you.
No, you don't want all me. Let's see. I'll do that again. There. It was all. I must not have clicked on it all the way. There. Okay. Can you view it now?
Yes.
Perfect. Right. I'm going to have to make sure because I'm not using the mouse I usually use, so I've got to be real persistent with this. Okay. Here's the definitions, though. Behavior is the way a person acts in response to a particular situation. And the second definition I pulled forward was that it's not just an individual, it could be a group or a species that's responding to its environment. So I thought it was important to bring those two pieces forward because many times when you're problem solving about a behavior, someone will say, I don't know, it just happened. You know, we were moving along, class was going great, and suddenly this behavior popped up. And that's probably less than accurate, maybe what we experienced in the moment, but there's always something that we're responding to in a situation that creates the behaviors that we see or impacts the behaviors that we see. So, keep that in mind. Might be something worth considering. I also believe that it's important to really decide how am I going to look at all of this? Behaviors can be difficult and challenging, but I choose to see potential. Every student that I worked with, every situation that I was in where there were behaviors of concern, I chose to see potential in the student to learn other skills. And that led me to presuming competence. I may not see it in this moment, but I'm going to presume that they are competent and able to learn whatever skills that we need for them to learn so that they can be successful in whatever environment we're working in. And then along with that, I think it's important to remember that we have a responsibility to teach behavior. So if I see potential, I presume competence, and then I teach the expectations that I want to see, there's a strong likelihood that we can see some changes. And really, teaching behavior is no different than teaching any of the other skills that we address in schools. Maybe you want to consider it more like coaching. I've been a coach and a teacher, and there are places where that overlaps. But I'm always looking for those opportunities to teach behavioral expectations. I'm either reinforcing the ones that students are using that we've already talked about and they seem to have a grasp for, or I'm reteaching if there's a misstep and a student is using a behavior that's kind of outside of the realm of where we want them to be at that time and in that moment. So what I'll do for the rest of our session now is I'm going to share with you 3, we call them behavioral basics considerations. And here's the first one. I love that face. I can't make anyone do anything. Okay, so first thing that we might want to keep in mind when it comes to the behavior of our students or anyone's behavior, I can't make anyone do anything. Now, I look at this picture and I love it because I have to believe that this kid is looking at that plate, and because he doesn't want to eat them, which is what he seems to be expressing with his posture and with his face, the pile looks probably 5 times larger than life, but that's okay. My question to you though is, knowing that we can't make anybody do anything, how would you get this kiddo to clean his plate? Okay, and this is where I was wanting to use Slido, Angie. So maybe what we'll do, since we've got a smaller group, is instead of moving away from that, can we put your ideas in the chat? Could we do that and just have some dialogue that way, since we've got a smaller group? So just type in, what would you do to get this kiddo to eat all of the food on that plate? So go to that chat box, and what would you do? What are some ideas? Bribery, humor. Okay. Just start by talking to him, and maybe he just needs a spoon. Okay. Yeah, I've never heard that before. That's a great one. Okay. Yeah, he didn't have the tools he needed. I didn't know how to begin. Wow. That's a great one when we think about behavior. Anything else? Well, I'm going to give you a chance to think about this for a minute. I'm going to share well, let's see. I'm going to share a childhood story, and I won't go too far with it, but it has to do with vegetables, and I think it helps to deepen our thinking about how we get kids to do what we need them to do if they don't want to. I like that encouragement, Brittany, by the way. So I grew up in a family where we had Sunday dinners, and every Sunday we all sat around the table together, the kids, the parents, sometimes grands were there as well. And every Sunday afternoon, there were vegetables, mixed vegetables. And they were never exactly the food that we wanted to eat, but the expectation was that you would eat the vegetables, you would clean your plate. And there was always that expectation, and there was always the rough reminders from parents, the threats, the arguments over they're too cold, I don't want to eat them. And so it was rather stressful, I'm sure, for my parents at times with 3 kids around the table, and nobody wanted to do this every week. And so one Sunday afternoon, Mom and Dad got up and left the table before we were finished, and we hadn't had the conversation about the vegetables. And as soon as I left the room, the oldest of the three of us started to play this little game with the pile of vegetables. He said, I think I'm feeling very weak right now. And the only thing that's going to make me stronger is if I eat a scoop of the dreaded hill of vegetables. And so he took his spoon and he ate a bite, and suddenly he had superpowers and he was strong and he was able to, to drink his Kool-Aid and keep his head high. And so of course we, the two girls behind him, we started to play the game along with him. And not sure why no adults came in to stop us. So we really felt like we were pulling one over on mom and dad by playing at the table. This turned into a pattern. Sundays, mom and dad leave the table, three kids play with the vegetables and clear the bowl. And it took me a long time to kind of realize that my mom was brilliant in that she didn't change the expectations around those vegetables. She changed the environment. She allowed us to make a game out of it. I know full well now as an adult that she knew what was going on in the dining room when they were in the kitchen. But by changing the expectations around it, changing the environment, by changing the environment and not the expectations around it, she got us cleaning the plate. And so I guess my question for you is, how could we leverage the power pills method, if you want to call it that, in a classroom? What might that look like if we find a way to bring students back to what it is we want them to do without actually forcing them to do it or making it uncomfortable? And let's see if I can get this to move forward. So my thought is we want to invite students to belong. Think about this. If we create an environment that increases the probability of students engaging with us and with the activities that we're doing of learning, maybe that's all the difference we need. And I'm going to define engagement as my being here matters. Have you ever had a child or a friend's child or a nephew or a niece that they have a particular activity that they enjoy going to after school, whether it's a sports team or it's a musical program, and they're like, come on, we got to get there. I don't want to be late. That's engagement. And that's part of my definition of my being here matters. They can't do this without me. They need for me to be there. And how do we build that within our classrooms and in our schools? Because I believe that we can. And the first thing I would say is that we create some predictability. And these are things you've probably heard of before, but do we do them regularly? Do we do them as a part of our routine? Using schedules and routines. This is how we always do this. If you're going to have a routine, though, I would suggest that we include an interruption to the routine signal. When I was in the classroom, I was rarely out sick. I was sometimes out for meetings, but I tried to adjust those things around the times that I had students. But if I had to be gone, if Miss Stovall had to be away, there was a little badge that I would slap up on the agenda on the side of the board that said, "Oh, Stovall's not going to be here from this time to this time." And so kids just knew. So they knew that we were still going to have our schedule, but it might have an interruption in it. And we talked about that before it had to happen and what the expectations were around that and so on. Auditory or visual prompts like anchor charts. I was working in a school where at 9:45, music started over the intercom system, and by 9:55, music stopped. And that was the transition music. Students knew that they needed to collect their things if they hadn't already picked them up for the end of the session, and then move to the next area they were supposed to be in. Transition music. What about grade level or school-wide common vocabulary? Okay. And then using active supervision, work in the crowd, moving around, not moving as if I'm out to get somebody, but just because I'm happy to be here. I'm kind of wandering with a purpose, okay? Using proximity control, getting close to kids. Yeah, all of them from time to time need us to be close to them, okay? Passing through, hanging out in the outside of my classroom doors as students were moving by, just to say hello, calling students by their name and pronouncing it correctly, and only shortening a student's name if they're okay with that. Okay, we have kids with names that have different pronunciations, but that is their name. And even as an adult, I notice when people don't call me Elisa. It doesn't bother me as much as it did when I was younger, but it's still, it's important to be called by your name. Those are things that can help make connections with students, and they're pretty unspectacular if you put them by themselves. Teach and model your expectations. Make sure you're giving examples of this is what it looks like and this is what it does not look like. So this is the yes and this is the no. Okay, so it's clear. This is what I expect in this place, because many times we have the same expectations across different settings, but it is slightly different. When we turn in our work, some teachers want us to put it in the basket on the side of their desk. Other teachers want us to go online and drop it into our the online repository for the work for that class. Sometimes they want you to keep it in a folder at your desk. What do you want me to do? And make sure that that's clear for students so that they know what it looks like in your setting. Give explicit feedback. Doing good doesn't really tell me what I've done well at. Okay, Lisa, when you were collecting the materials to put in the bin after we finished the science activity, I really appreciate that you moved around the room quietly and didn't, because I was still kind of talking and giving a few end of session directions. So I appreciate that. Okay, very explicit. What did I do? What did I do well? What do I need to do differently? Embedding your teaching expectations all day, every day. Okay, pre-correction. Just a little reminder, I'm sure if you've got children in your life, you find yourself or have found yourself prepping before you go to an activity. I did it all the time with the 3-year-old going to the grocery store. Here's what we're doing. We're going in. We're only going to buy the things on the list. We are going to stay away from the ice cream aisle today. No ice cream is on the list. Just so you're going to need to sit, and you can help me with putting other things in the cart, but we're not going to discuss anything that's not on the list. Pre-correction, okay, simplified. Something else you might do is set kids up for the win, okay? Sometimes we have students, and working at the middle school, high school level, I had students that just really weren't comfortable participating in group discussions. They just didn't, they weren't keeping anyone from learning, but they weren't really, and they were listening, but they weren't really contributing anything. And so occasionally I would give them an answer to a question the day before and say, we're going to be talking about this tomorrow. Here's the response I'm looking for. And I know you've read the material and I know you think about it, you just haven't spoken up. I'd like for you to, to raise your hand and answer, or at least try. If you panic at the last minute, give me the sign, pull your ear and I'll move on. But, I'm going to look for you to raise your hand when I ask this question. And this is the answer to that question. Okay, that's setting them up for the win, or one way to do that. Building confidence. You know how to work hard. Okay, reminding students of their successes and efforts and hard work. Okay, because there are other places where kids will work hard and do work hard that we don't see. Maybe they'll share some of those with us, but if you know something about your students and you know that they're involved in a sports team, well, if they're going to practice, there are nights where they're working very hard at the skills they need to learn, or if they play an instrument, or if they're part of a chorus or a choir, or many other things. Just get to know your students and find out those things that they do, and then you can use those as those examples of these are successes. This is the time that you had to work really hard to get to something that was important to you. So I know you know how to do hard work. These are what we like to call investments in a learning rich environment. And so here's what I'm going to ask you to do now. On the next screen, I'm going to show you a link that you can go to. And I want you to select one of these investment strategies from the list, and there'll be a list of them there. And then think about what that investment might look like in your setting, whatever level you're at. or what it might look like in your building or grade level. And here's the Padlet. I am going to see if this works, Ange. I'm going to go back into it. You should be able to see the investment strategy screen.
Definitely.
Yay! Okay, and what you'll do is here are the directions again. Here are the different types of investments that I just chatted through. And if you have one you'd like to share, if you over here to the right-hand corner of your screen, there's a little pencil. If you double click on that, then it opens up an area for you to, you could put the title, and we don't have any pictures to slide in, but you could certainly add some text here about what might be a way that you could use, or you could see one of these investment strategies being used at your grade level. And I'll give you a minute to see if you, because whatever you add should show up right here on the screen.
Elisa, I put the link to this Padlet in the chat.
Thank you. I'll give you a minute or two to think about this and see if there's an investment strategy you can come up with. How could you create predictability? How might you use active supervision? And then when I click publish, there it is. Great. Fantastic. This Padlet is here, and you can continue to add to it if something else comes to you. But ensuring procedures are explicitly taught across the year. Yes. Schedules, visuals. Absolutely. Okay. And as this Padlet is going to stay a part of the presentation for the year. And so if you come back in another couple months, you may find many more ideas too. Having the same weekly schedule and reward day. Okay, lots of visuals. Sitting in different seats. But yes, I used to do that. I love that. Fantastic. Building strong relationships. All right. All right. Well, I'm going to go back to, and I think I'm figuring this out now. It's not going to let me move as fluidly as I'd like to move, but we're getting there. So again, that's investment strategies. So let's see here. So why do I talk about this? It's prevention. And when it comes to behavior, there are only 3 places to intervene: before it happens, while it's happening, or after it happens. And if you want to have the situation where there's the least stress, where there's the least anguish or upset, you're probably going to want to choose before it happens. Okay, less stress, less time, less energy. Let's go there. Okay. So now I'm going to move on to our second consideration. Number 2, behavior is communication. And as you can see, there are several pictures there on the screen. And I'd love for you to pick one or maybe 2 and just, what do you think that behavior is saying? Just what do you think? If you want to throw it in the chat, you can. If you just want to, think about it and keep it at the front of your mind for a moment. We've got 5 kiddos saying 5 different things. Now, behavior is communication. However, we don't always get the same message. And many times it's different. Here's what I thought when I looked at these first pictures. That little girl with the basketball, she just wanted to be a part of the game, and she's mad. Okay. Now, someone else might have thought, mine, this is my ball and I'm not sharing. That's possible, but that's not what came to mind first. Okay. The others, this is boring. The boy with his head down, it's possible. Or frustration, I can't do this. I don't know how to do this. I can't remember what I'm supposed to do. Or I'm tired. Okay. And what about the last one down there, the little girl standing against the, she's not in timeout. I think she just saw her, somebody in her family did something they weren't supposed to do. And she's, ooh, I'm telling, but maybe not. But the point is, behaviors can send different messages. And how are we to know which one is which? If behaviors communication. The only way we can know is to have a better understanding of the student. And if we know a little more about them, we have a relationship with them, we may be a little more accurate in understanding what their behavior is saying. Because it's important to be able to do that, because behavior not only communicates something, it has a purpose or a function. Okay, and most of the time it's to get or obtain something, or to avoid or escape something. And as we move towards working with kids with complex behavior problems, this is where we start when we're trying to problem solve. What's the function of the behavior? What is the student trying to gain by using this behavior or escape? Okay, and you can see on the screen, it could be a number of different things. Attention, some sort of a work expectation, control. Maybe it's just sensory overload. Okay, and they just want to be away from the noise and the chaos. But there's always a function to the behavior. And the more we know about the student, the more we can better determine what might be the issue. I have a student from my past that whenever he was reprimanded, he would smile. Now, when he was in first and second grade, that wasn't as big a deal. But when you're in the middle school or the high school and the assistant principal corrects you about something or directs you to do something and you smile, what do you think they think? Yeah, he's just trying to be difficult. And so, it can lead down a different path, but knowing kids makes a difference. And that was actually something that we had information that we had to pass forward with this student after working with him for years, that this is how he responds. It's kind of an embarrassment thing. That's what we came to know over the years, but it has a function and a purpose, or also known as a purpose. So here's our response for that. Really investing in relationships with students. Get to know them. Now, that can be difficult, and it may not be something that you have the ability to do because of your schedule. But if possible, I didn't eat in the cafeteria much, but I did swing through. And if I wasn't on a duty, and just check in with a couple of kids and say, hey, how's your morning gone? I went to competitions. And some of the extracurricular activities, as I could do that, within the community that I was living in. You can do things that don't involve, your time outside of your particular responsibilities in the building. Maybe plan for some cross-grade level groupings or community building, with houses or different cohorts of students. And discussing social emotional learning topics, that's something that's begun to happen quite a bit in our buildings around the state. Participate in a community service project. As an assistant principal, when I had students serving detention, we would go and gear up with the appropriate equipment, and we would dust all of the trophies in the trophy case in the building, because the school was the center of the community, and there were trophies in there that went back to the 1930s. And so when the Silver Sneakers group came walking through, the elders in our community would use the building to walk. They like to see those nice, spiffy clean, windows on the cabinets and see that someone had taken care. And sometimes they would ask about it, and I could tell them, oh, well, there's a group of students who worked on that. They didn't need to know that they were students that were doing a detention, but it was a community project, and it brought people together. Okay. Share the relevance of academic content and concepts. create connections between students and other students, between students and teachers, and even between teachers, teacher to teacher. Okay, create connections. So you're kind of probably saying, yeah, I've heard about these things, and relationships and explicit modeling and being intentional about how I arrange the room and building the environment safely. Is there anything else? Come on, Elise, you can do better than this. Well, there actually is. And if you've not seen this behavior escalation cycle before, Jeff Colvin and Terrence Scott were the ones that brought this forward some years ago, talking about there's a cycle of acting out behavior, and we all go through it. And this can be a tool that we can use as well. It starts out, and again, I say everybody does it. So, it's not just me and my students, but everyone moves through the stages, and it starts with calm. And at the calm stage, that's when our bodies are most ready for engagement. That's when we learn. That's when the senses are most receptive. So we're just wide open and ripe for learning in the calm stage. Our bodies are ready. Our minds can be ready at that time too. And then the second stage is there's a trigger, which is a distraction or something that disrupts that calm. And it can be internal, it could be a thought, it could be external as a sound or a smell or an experience that you have with somebody else, but there's a trigger. Once you've had that trigger, you can either move back to a calm or you can move forward to agitation. And agitation is when our focus can only stay on the trigger. We just can't pull ourselves away from it. We may perseverate on it. If we're speaking, sometimes our speaking becomes short and clipped, and it's hard to go back to thinking about what we were doing before we had that trigger. So that agitation is, it's kind of building. The acceleration is just that. That's where more energy starts to come to this agitation, and it speeds up our thoughts and our actions. If it continues to build, it moves towards a peak. Okay, and the peak is going to be where whatever the most, what's the word I want to use? The most severe behavior that you're going to see, if it's going to be a yell or a scream, or if it's going to be a punch, that's what happens at the peak of this behavioral curve here. And there's a lot of energy behind it, and that's where the most damage is sometimes done, or the most harm comes at that peak, because it's just all about energy and anger and sometimes rage. It can't last forever. It can last a long time. And I've worked with kids where it's lasted a half hour or so, and then there's a de-escalation. The de-escalation is when the energy starts to fade. The critical piece of this is that if we're not careful, you can go back up to a peak if we don't let the de-escalation kind of continue to settle in. And so this is a time when you might see a student is embarrassed about what just happened, or sometimes they're tired, but there's still some energy being expended, and we're trying to just let that die down just a bit. And then the last area is that recovery, where the energies decrease and the cycle is kind of complete, and the individual may be ready to go back to the routine or to the activity that they were doing before, or, it's kind of finished. And that's the cycle that all of us move through. Some more quickly than others, some quite a bit more slowly than others. But here's what I want to share with you. Now that, we all go through that cycle. What does that mean for me as a teacher and working with students? Our responses impact student responses. And so what we do can make a difference in what the student does. And so here are the things that I want you to consider. At the calm, that's the only place where we can teach expectations and consequences for choices. Okay, that's the only place that it works well, and where the learning can really occur. At the calm. When a student moves from calm and there's a trigger, then we go into more of a state where you might consider it coaching. You're reminding the student of options of things that they know to do, because we taught them when they were calm. One of the things I used to share with the student was that you can be as angry as you want to be, but you can't hurt yourself and you can't hurt anybody else. And I would just go and, if he continued to spiral, I would just say, you can't hurt yourself, you can't hurt anybody else, because that was the biggest issue for him. He became very physical and wanted to strike out. And, you had to think about when was the right time to say that, and the tone of voice. But that coaching, come on, a few things to kind of do to help yourself. Control your breathing like we practiced, okay? Kind of coaching students on. When they get to that agitation stage, that's when, again, there's less hearing and seeing going on by the student. They're more, there's more energy around that upset or anger. So then you briefly talk about options and then the choices that you have. Okay, options and choices. Nothing more. Don't introduce any new information, just options and choices. Then when we get to acceleration, and you'll see that the next 3 sections, acceleration, peak, and de-escalation, they all require the same response from us as the adults in the room. Calm action, no sudden moves, no yelling, just calm. And the focus is safety, keeping everybody safe. So that may mean you need to clear a room. And clearing the room is probably better as your first option than to try to move a student, because that can agitate further, or someone might get injured. But if you have a safety plan in place and you've taught it to your students, in a word, they know to pick up their things and leave. Or they know that another adult comes and removes them from the room, and that everybody moves quietly and quickly. Okay, you don't want to make this any bigger than it already is. And keep in mind, the student's level is going to match your level when you're working with them. So if you're louder, they're going to be louder. If you bring it down, they're more likely to bring it down too. So that's that that we're just talking about calm action and safety. Same thing for when it reaches the peak. At the peak, things begin to happen really quickly with kids, because again, that's where they're going to be the most aggressive, or whatever, the strongest behaviors are going to show are going to happen at that peak. Calm, direct tone is really the most important thing. If you're speaking at all, many times that's just the time to stop talking. Okay, you can use signals to make sure everybody else is out safely. If you do speak, there would only be one person talking, because this would be the time where you've got other people coming in to support. Nobody needs to say anything. There should be a plan about who will say anything at all if that's going to happen. Okay. De-escalation. When we get to that point, again, we're still focusing on calm action and safety. This is where you're going to be prepared for that embarrassment that the student may have. You might need to provide some privacy for the student. Okay, if they've blown up and now they're feeling a little embarrassed about it, that could lead to another behavior. So should be someplace away if you've been able to move other students out. This is critical, because you want to let the energy just fade out now. You want to bring the student back down from that peak completely. You don't want them to, it's not a roller coaster that we want to keep going on. We just want them to continue to descend and calm. And then once that happens, we go to the recovery stage. And recovery, this is it is as important as the calm stage is, because this is where you focus on reconnecting with the student. And it's unconditional positive regard. You are a member of this community. Yeah, this is, obviously there's been an issue or something that's happened that's kind of boiled to the top. We're not going to focus on the details of that now. You're a member, you belong here. You're a part of this group. We'll get through this. Okay. Maybe the student needs to be someplace else to calm, or maybe there'll be a consequence that comes that, and the student will be away from the classroom, or maybe you've exited with the student by now and it hasn't been able to happen. But before the student goes back to class, in the calm state, you need to make sure that you take care of the relationship rebuilding. Okay. Relationship rebuilding is not the time to discuss the consequences. It's not the time to say, well, we're going to reteach, you need to learn. That can only happen in the calm. So recovery is just about, you're still a member here. You still belong here. We still care about you, and we'll get through this. Yeah, there'll be consequences. There'll be, things that happen on the other side, but we'll get through this. And then when the student comes back and is in a calm state, that's where you talk about consequences. That's where you begin to do the reteaching and so on. I've just shared a lot there. Are there any questions that anybody might have or comments? I'm going to take a peek at the chat.
Nothing's come up in the chat so far.
Okay, great.
Or in the Q&A, either one. Fantastic.
Okay, well, let's talk for a minute about planning your response. So, how do we manage this? Again, I'm not the behavior specialist, and you don't have to be, but you are a teacher, and you're good at teaching content and breaking it down into doable parts. And there are some things that you can teach your students. Teach them how to deal with their known triggers. If I know a student really struggles when there's a guest teacher, then we're going to talk about that before that time, and we're going to come up with some strategies about what do you do when Mrs. Stovall's not here. One of the things I do is I make sure that little signal for an interrupted schedule is on the calendar, so you can right away. But then what are other things that you can do for yourself, and teaching those strategies to the student, or setting up something in the environment so that the students can begin to take care of their own needs, and letting other staff members know that we've got some plans for how to address this. Dr. Scott, Terrence Scott, who's someone we've worked with quite a bit here in Indiana around behavior, in his book, Teaching Behavior, talks about teaching your class the ignoring game. And it really is, it's like a student against teacher game, where students learn the skills of ignoring, all the parts of ignoring. And the bottom line is the teacher tries to do anything they can to get students to not ignore. And ignoring is defined explicitly, and so that everybody knows what it looks like, what it sounds like. So this is what you're supposed to do in Ms. Stovall's class when you ignore. You keep your eyes on the work that you have, be listening for directions to do something different, but keep your eyes on your work, or whatever it needs to be. And then you practice that, and the teacher works very hard to try to pull students off of their ignoring. And but it's one way to teach the skill in kind of a fun way. Teach your class a privacy signal, so that if there's ever a time that a classmate or an adult in the room needs privacy, it could be a medical emergency, it could be they're upset about something they just learned, they could be frustrated, whatever it is, you give that privacy signal and practice it, and then kids know how to clear the room or what to ignore. Okay. One of the other things you can do is inform students of what will happen if they're at the peak of their emotions, and in that cycle, because most of us don't remember what we're doing and what we're like when we're at that peak in the escalation cycle. And then let them know what will happen after, because again, they may not remember that if they're still kind of full of energy, and we're going to keep you safe. We're going to make sure that nobody gets hurt. I'm going to be looking for you to come back because you're still a part of this class. You're here until you're not. I used to say that for students that did a lot of moving around to different, in foster placements and things. I said, hey, you're here until you're not. So as long as you're here, you're in. We're going to work through this. Make sure there's a time to debrief, including for the adults and for other students. Okay, and then using natural consequences. You make a mess, you clean it up. You damage something that belongs to somebody else, you make some sort of acknowledgement and apology. Okay, you might have to to make restitution for it. Thinking and planning for teaching these types of understandings to your students, and that can help our response as well. Okay, well, this doesn't want to change. Oh, there it goes. Speak privately to students if there's something going on. Okay, I know I would appreciate if there was an issue and with my boss came in and in front of everybody in the teacher's lounge started talking about it. That would be a little awkward, but speak privately to students if you can. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't even tell you where I was going. I just went in my own head. I want to give you some specific examples around provocative behavior, and I love this one because it happens so often. When you've got students that do things to provoke a response in the classroom, okay, provocative behavior. These are some things that you can do to work with that. Make sure you're speaking privately to the student. That's important. Just keep it to the side, keep it quiet. That it doesn't give any more energy to the situation. Make sure you identify the problem as it's the student and not you. Okay, these are the rules. We all abide by them, and this is the this is the rule that you've broken. And here are your choices. Present options as a choice, and then ask the student to choose one. Okay, offer assistance, but it's the student that needs to take care of the problem. Okay, you don't have to get into an argument with the student. They want to start a verbal thing. It's the rules, and I'm here to help you, comply with the rules and learn. I would tell students there's only 2 reasons we have rules: to keep people safe and so we can learn. And I could tuck just about anything under either one of those those headers. Okay, and sometimes kids need assistance with, how are you going to take care of this problem? Okay. Acknowledge cooperation. When a student does begin to cooperate with you, say thank you. Acknowledge it, even if it's just one step. If the student refuses to comply with the solution, then you'll need to follow through with a bottom line consequence. And every one of us should have a bottom line consequence. What is it going to be? This is the one that, when I was in the classroom, that was the one that moved it from my classroom down the hall to the principal's office. And I would tell students, I can't help you. Once you leave this room, I don't have any say in the consequences. I know what we can do here and I can help you here, but once you go down the hall, then the administrator's in charge, our principal's in charge of those decisions. And I'd love to help you, but I can't. I can only do what they asked me to do at that point. So work with me here. And sometimes that made a difference, and you always present whatever happens as a choice the student made. But remember, it's only a choice they made if we have taught them what our expectations are and practice them with the students. So there's another set of step-by-steps for non-compliance. And I'm not going to read these to you, but you can take a look, and it just kind of walks you through. What do I do when I've got a student that's being non-compliant? Okay, and you can break it into parts. And the reason I'm not going to share that with you is because I want to take you to the next piece. I want to make sure we have time for you to see this. And let's see. I'm going to actually stop sharing and reshare this just to make sure that the sound and everything is good to go. And it is. And I told you that we had worked some with Dr. Terry Scott. He's done a lot of sessions and trainings here in Indiana, and he does a beautiful job of kind of explaining the whys of all of the stuff that we've spent a little bit of time on today. Whoops. And let's see if we can get that back.
You need to sit down so we can get the bus moving. We're not going while you're standing. Harper, that includes you. Sit down.
Whatever.
Harper, I'm not going to tell you again. I'm going to count to 3, and if you aren't seated, you're out of here. 1, 2, 3. Off. Let's go.
Forget it. I'm going home.
Not on my bus, you aren't. Harper needs to be escorted off.
All right, Harper. Let's go.
Seriously, this is ridiculous.
Let's go. There are these kids out there, like Harper, that if I'm being totally honest, I'd have to say, I kind of enjoyed watching her get kicked off the bus. She is super obnoxious. You say something to her and she says the snottiest, surly remark, and there's a bit of satisfaction in going, bye, Harper, but like the other kids are. But what if I say, Harper gets kicked off the bus occasionally, and when she does, she doesn't come to school for a week, and she's already failing a lot of her classes. Then it kicks back in, oh right, I'm the adult here. And my job is to make the kid successful, even though I find this kid very annoying. My job is, how could I set her up to do it right, even when it's more pleasurable for me to see her do it wrong and get punished. And that's something that I think we have to be honest with ourselves about, that there are sometimes kids push you to the point where I don't do all of the things I should do because, let's face it, that kid leaving the room feels awfully good sometimes. And we have to just keep thinking about, again, eye on the prize. The win for me is that that kid maintains and stays in school. That's my job. And when I do that and make that happen, I'm the winner in that sense. So here's the solution video, which is very simple. The difference is, in this one, the bus driver is going to give her a reason. Here's what the rule is. That's why I need you to do this. And when Harper says something rude back, she says, here are some options. Up to you. Makes Harper make a decision.
Okay, guys, let's have a seat so we can get started. I can't move the bus while we're standing because it's a safety issue, so sit down so we can get home, please. Come on, Harper, have a seat, please.
Hang on, I'm talking.
Can you have a seat there and turn around and finish your conversation, or even hop in the seat behind you and go ahead and finish your conversation, because I can't move the bus while you're standing. I'm not allowed.
Fine.
Thanks, Harper.
Now I know that this bus driver right now is thinking, I hate Harper. And that's okay. We can't help what you're feeling, and I understand it. But she also, at the same time, said, I'm going to give her every opportunity to be successful instead of escalating her behavior. In the last one, she just simply said, sit down. Harper said, whatever. And she said, I'm counting to 3, which in the history of behavior management has never worked to change anybody. 1, 2, 3, you're out. This time she said, here's why. Here are your choices. And it worked. It may or may not have worked. In this case, it did. But again, you don't have to love the kid to still be thinking this is the right thing to do. We've got to get people to think about that eye on the prize part.
Okay. Angie, is it possible to unmute the group since we have such a small group?
Yeah, it's going to take me a second because I have to promote them to panelists in order to allow it. But I can do that. It'll just take a second.
Okay. Well, while that's happening, I just thought we've got such a small group. I thought after viewing that, maybe it would be nice to spend a little time, talking about what you thought, what that said. So it looks like Angie's getting you or you can unmute yourselves now. Is there anyone that would like to just, what do you think after listening to Dr. Scott's words there about the why of this? Anyone care to comment? I'd love to know what you think.
So I have an example.
Yes, Nicole.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so just a real life example from last week about how adults can escalate a student's behavior. We had a student running, and our admin asked him to walk in the hall. Obviously a practice we all ask our middle school students to do. And so the student did, but he started doing like the grandpa walk, really slow and trying to be kind of funny about it. And so at that point, as an adult, we have two options on how we can respond. We can crack down on them for what we could perceive as disrespect, or we could laugh with them and say, hey, thanks for that walk. I really appreciate it.
Mhm.
And in this case, the adult chose to crack down and come at it as looking at it as disrespect. And then the student escalated to that tone of voice and ended up with a lunch detention. And I think it could have gone a lot differently if the adult would have just been like, oh, you are so funny. Thanks for that walk. I appreciate you following my expectations. And so that's, after the fact, it's easy to think, oh, I could have responded like this. But I think it's helpful to remind adults too, that it really is your response that's going to make or break that behavior.
Oh, great. Thanks for sharing that. Any other thoughts on what Nicole has shared or something more?
This is Alana. Hi. I was thinking that maybe that's kind of like a control, and you don't always have to win. You have to think about that as an adult. We want what's best for the student. You don't have to win necessarily. So the control doesn't, you provide choices for the student to make that choice to be successful. And I think sometimes adults in that moment want to see themselves as they're going to be the upper hand. So that's just my thoughts on that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is Kelsey here. I would agree with that. I think at the junior high level, we see so many kids trying to engage in a power struggle, and it's up to you as the adult and teacher whether or not you choose to engage back with them or to let it go and to be the quote unquote bigger person as the adult there.
Yes, exactly. And it was a good reminder for me when every time I hear it, that clip, that it's not about me winning. The win is for the student to stay in school and learn and move forward. That's a hard one to put down sometimes when you feel like, what? I'm in charge here. Yeah. Other comments or questions even about what we've. I've had individuals ask if they could have that video clip to take back to their building. And actually, it's part of a presentation that I think it is on our website, or one of the times that Dr. Scott was here working with our groups. So it's not the best visual, but the audio was perfect. So that's why we chose to use it. Okay, any other comments or thoughts at this point? I'm going to take you through the additional resources that we have to share with you, the takeaways. And but okay, well, thanks for sharing those comments, and I appreciate that. And I know your colleagues do as well. Okay, well, I am going to go back to the remaining slides so that you can see what it is that we are working towards.
Elisa, as you do that,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that kind of popped into my head, I know there's definitely that struggle of winning, right? And I know that as an adult, if I engage in a power struggle with a student and I want to win, I will lose. I'm just not that person who can end up winning unless I remain calm and let it not be about that. But I think for a lot of teachers, and especially teachers who are dealing with secondary students, it's not just about the win. It's about, if I don't win, how does it look to all the other kids? Can you talk about some of your experience with dealing with that kind of stuff?
Oh, and I'd love to hear from some others too. It really goes back to, what is my role? What is my role here? Truly, in the building, kids have a right to be in school. I'm an employee. And what am I being asked to do? What am I being paid to do? Because I don't have a right to be there. I'm the employee. And if my job is to teach, then I need to make sure that I have to consider it's bigger than just me. It's bigger than just that student. I don't know, unless I've developed a relationship with that student, what more could be going on. And the only thing that I can do that can help me behave differently than getting huffy and saying you're challenging my authority is if I have a better understanding of the students around me. you know, if I understand that it's been a long day, you know, I give grace to my family members most of the time, or my friends when they're snippy, and you know, because I have a relationship and I know them. But as a teacher, in my role, I'm there to teach content, but that's not the only thing. And I guess that's where I tried to keep myself, and not going to that place of, well, I'm entitled to, you know, I demand respect from you. You know, I can't do that anyway. It's for a student to give to me. I can't take it. And I guess I always look through that lens of, if this is the behavior that's not in line with the expectations for what we want kids to be doing here, I need to make sure that I've let that student know and they've had a chance to learn it and do it and practice it. You know, you don't raise your voice back at me. Well, I raise my voice at him. You know, is it okay just because I'm bigger and older or have more authority and power in this situation? No, not really. But I default to that. And so I have to stop myself and literally stop myself and you know, what is it I'm supposed to be doing here? Teaching and learning, including behavior, not just math, not just social studies content. And I don't know, that's just always kind of where I've been with that. I don't know if that's helpful or not, but it's just not, you know, I'm not the biggest person in the room, and I'm certainly not the most important person in the room. It's the students or in the hallways. And, you know, if there's an opportunity to build a relationship, that's what I'm going to go for first. How do we avoid power struggles? How do we avoid power struggles with people that we like or that we know? And then should it be any different if it's someone that I don't know as well? Any other thoughts or anything in the chat that might be worthy of a few minutes conversation? I appreciate those of you that shared that. That was really meaningful and important to share out with us. Thank you. I will move through now the additional resources. We wanted to make sure that you had some things to take away, and I'm going to encourage you to try. One of the things we've added to our presentation catalog this year and trainings is a work session, and this particular topic has one. I'm not the behavior specialist, so what I would challenge you to do is looking through these resources, pick one or maybe two, or one that you want to dig into more and find out a little bit more about, or one that maybe you want to implement, and then come back to a session and tell us how it's gone and what you've learned, or you know, how it made a difference or not in the situations that you were in. You know, we don't have to have all the details of kids in it, but you know, just was it beneficial to defusing something, or did it make a transition more easily occur? The first list I have, and these are also materials that are on the Padlet, are the Just Do It strategies, which are just things that you don't have to do a lot of planning and preparation to make these things happen. You'll want to think about it if you're going to use it for instructional purposes, but chunking tasks, you know, there are lots of ways to determine work order. It doesn't always have to be the order that you say it is, unless, you know, it's a skill that you're building on and there's, you know, there's a reason. And then I'd share that reason with the students and say, this is one where you've got to do them sequentially. Give them more information, but let the student divide up the work page. If they've got to do the whole thing, then divide it into thirds, or, you know, circle the ones that you want to do, or check the ones that you want to do first. Do odds and then evens, or, you know, just give them an opportunity to say, you know, this is how I want to attack this work. You know, it still needs to be finished by this amount of time, but, you know, how do you want to tackle this? It's okay as long as you get them done, you know, as long as you do the work. Posting assignments or to-dos in the same place every day. that's just a couple of the ones that were on the list, and there are many more. Make it happen strategies are things that take a little more time to set up. The pre-correction we've talked about, giving requests in the form of a choice. It's really powerful to do this, but you have to think about, am I okay with the choices that I'm giving the student? Because the choices can't be either you do it or you don't. It's got to be you do it in this manner or you do it in that manner, using visual cues and so on. And specific praise, those are things that we've alluded to in our trainings across the years with behavior. This resource has been around for a little while now. It's called Supporting and Responding to Behavior, and they're evidence-based classroom strategies for teachers. And it started out with the What's Worked focus, but it now has a home at the Center for PBIS as a resource, and the link is there at the bottom, or you can do a search for the title. But what I like about this is it not only does it break down each of the practices, and it's got a variety of academic and behavioral strategies. They include video, which gives you the yes and the no. So you can see a non-example as well as an example. And I just find it to be very helpful. And it's something that you can go through on your own. There's an interactive process that you can do online, or you can just download the document and read about these areas. And they always have elementary, middle, and high school examples. So might be a tool that is worth checking out if you want to focus on evidence-based practices, because we know those are the ones that are going to be more effective when used in the manner that they were designed to be used. There's some other opportunities to see and read some of Dr. Scott's work. And actually, I think that's the last of the resources that I had for you, at least attached to this. If there are particular areas that you would like for us to try to find you some resources for, you are welcome to contact me. My contact information is on the next page, or anybody at the IEP Resource Center. We're happy to try to be of support. Yay, thanks, Angie, for tucking that in there. What else do I want to let you know? If you're interested in coming back to the session, the work session, where we'll do more interactive talking, and it's really more you talking than I hope. You can use the scan me on the right hand side of your screen to look at the dates and times to sign up. I would love to have some feedback. Thanks for bearing with me with the technology part of this. It's a learning curve that I'm back on again, and I'll get better. And I appreciate the support from my colleagues. But we would like to have your feedback on what worked. What else would you want to be a part of this? This wasn't meant to be developing behavior intervention plans, but it needs to be information that can be helpful if you need to share it out. One of the things that I did actually add to the Padlet is a document called Managing Surface Behaviors. And what these individuals have done is they've kind of given a title or a name to lots of different strategies that people use all the time. And you know how you have somebody in the building and you say, oh, he's just so good with the kids. He's just so good with the behavior things. I don't know what he does. It's just like magic. Well, it's not magic. They're actual strategies that those individuals are using. And someone has named them so that you can say, oh yeah, that's antiseptic bouncing, which is one that maybe you've already heard of. I can't think of another name off the top of my head, but there's a whole list of different strategies that are pretty basic to do, but they've been named and labeled so that you can refer to them. And once you can refer to them, you can teach them to others too, and say, yeah, if you want to find out about antiseptic bouncing, this is where you can go, and this is what it looks like. And so I'm kind of sharing the love with the behavioral things.
Elisa, Nicole
Mhm.
tried to get into the evaluation and for some reason it is not uploaded as a choice. So it'll
Ah.
only take us a few minutes to get that uploaded and then you'll have the choice there. So
Oh, thank
hang
you.
tight and then go back to that link. So if you want to copy that link and
Yeah.
we'll get it up there.
It's actually our web address /eval. If that makes it easier for you to remember if you're not scanning it or something. But no, I thought I checked that to make sure it was there. But thank you for taking care of that. Any other? Oh, I see lots of things on the Padlet. I just skimmed past that. But are there any other questions? We've got a few minutes, or if you're ready to head out, I thank you for participating. The last page has my contact information. If you want to reach me, our website, there's an area on the website that has all of the contact information as well, all of our staff, if that's helpful to you. But I'm happy to listen to your comments or answer a question or two. It's getting close to time for us to end our session, but I am happy to hang on. If not, thanks for spending some time with me and with us this morning. It's still morning this morning. And hope all goes well with you and your students and that there was some information here that could be helpful as you move forward with teaching and learning. So thank you.